Hồng Vân xin kính chào quý khán thính giả. Kính thưa quý vị, hôm nay là sáng thứ Bảy, ngày 31 tháng Giêng năm 2009, tức là mùng 6 Tết, và Hồng Vân đang có mặt tại nhà hàng Long Phụng Lầu. Bây giờ là 7 giờ 45 sáng và ngày hôm nay là buổi tiếp tân vị dân biểu liên bang đầu tiên người Mỹ gốc Việt Joseph Anhcao từ Louisiana qua để dự. Lát nữa đây sẽ có buổi diễn hành trên đường đại lộ Monsa, diễn hành Tết do thành phố Westminster tổ chức. Và được biết là dân biểu Joseph Anhcao sẽ là Grand Marshal trong cái buổi diễn hành Tết ngày hôm nay, và sau đó thì ông cũng sẽ đi dự hội chợ Tết do Tổng hội sinh viên tổ chức hàng năm tại Garden Grove Park. Và bây giờ thì Hồng Vân xin kính mời quý vị theo dõi phóng sự đặc biệt này.
30 minutes to get to nearest hospital, so you can see the great difficulties that the people there are still experiencing. So that was my main focus, and my main focus was not really to win, but to basically keep the leadership focus on what we were trying to do out there. But as you know, I am a person of faith. I was born and raised Catholic, and after I graduated from college, I entered the Jesuit seminary for 6 years, wanted to become a missionary, and I had a great opportunity to work in Mexico and in Hong Kong, and had a chance to come back to visit Vietnam in 1994 to see the many projects that the Society of Jesus was doing. So that was the dream of my life, was to become a Catholic priest, and I tried that, and it didn't turn out too well. Celibate life was somewhat difficult, a lot more difficult than I anticipated. But what I learned in the Society of Jesus was the world is much bigger than what we see around us. And there are many problems that need to be addressed, and we have to become more involved and to become more active in our communities, in our societies, and in our country. So when I left the Society of Jesus in 1996, I basically drafted a course to eventually be involved in politics. But my first concern was to get a job, because when I left the Society of Jesus, they gave me $3,000. I spent all of that money buying a car, and I put into the car all the possessions that I had, a bunch of books, some clothes. And I drove to Northern Virginia to live with my sister in Falls Church. And when I got there, I only had $20 left in my pocket. So my first priority was to find a job, which I did. I found a teaching job in a Catholic school in Arlington, Virginia. I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math, English literature, and religion. And then I started to look around to see what I can do to contribute and to learn the whole political process. And that was when I was introduced to Dr. Thang Nguyen, who's here today. And he served as my mentor and introduced me to Capitol Hill and to some members. And from there I became very much inspired and started to look at other opportunities to be more involved. So I decided to study and to enroll myself in law school, and I chose New Orleans, Louisiana, because there was a community there that I learned and lived with when I first got there in '92, and I was thinking that I would need a wife. So that's why I came to New Orleans, because I know that I will be able to find a wife down there. Because when I left the society, I was already 29. And I didn't want to have children when I'm 40 or 50, and my children are only 3, 4, and 5. That would be a difficult task to do. But so I had a plan that I would get into law school, get married, have a family, and to actively involve in the community. So I got a wife. I started up my law practice, and looked to become more involved. And I began with working in the Vietnamese community there, teaching CCD, teaching little kids, teaching teenagers to be more socially conscious. And then after Katrina in in 2005, that was when we, as a community, was able to speak out and to challenge the city with some of the issues that were not beneficial to our community, especially the landfill in New Orleans East. And then from there, I progressed to run for state representative and to run for U.S. Congress, which leads me back to this race. And basically, when I first began, I had no money, I had no organization, so my wife was pretty much correct that we really had no chance of winning. But again, things were just fell into place, and the New Orleans community began to reach out to the Vietnamese community, and many doctors, many community leaders, and many people contributed to the campaign. And we worked very hard, and we strategically drafted a course of action in order to allow a Vietnamese American to win in a district that is Democrat and that's Republican. And basically we were targeting William Jefferson. And when we qualified, there were about 8 other members of the Democratic Party, very prominent members of the African American communities who wanted the seat. But we worked basically strategically to get Jefferson back in. And afterwards, when Jefferson got back into the race, that is when we were able to raise money and to galvanize the community and to win this race. Because before that, given the district was predominantly Democrat and also predominantly African American, no one paid attention to the little Vietnamese out there who's a Republican. I actually called the TV stations and the radio stations and say, hey, remember, there is still a candidate out there, and he's going to be in the general election in November. But no one paid attention and said, well, we worry about you when the time gets there. So literally, no one paid attention to us, and no one... It was the little group of people that we had. We began to talk to different people, to talk to community leaders. We began to talk to business leaders, and we were trying to present a plan to them that if this occurred, if Jefferson were to be the Democratic nominee for the congressional seat, this will happen, and we were trying to convince them that we had a very good chance of winning. So on November the 5th, when Jefferson was the Democratic nominee, then people began to come together and to galvanize and to help us, and we were able to fundraise about $250,000 in the span of 3 weeks to run a campaign literally that was only a month long. Because before that, we had very little contributions, very little volunteers, but in order for us to reach on December 6th the podium, we had to reach out to people, to convince people, and to talk to people, and to convince them that the race was winnable. But my goal in telling this story is to let the young people know, to let everyone know that to win a race is very hard work, but is also very winnable. And we have to look at all the opportunities that are out there. And really, do not listen to political pundits who try to convince you that you don't have a chance, that there's no way for you to win. Just go out there, because as you know, and as Councilman Royce can tell you, that in a race, very many things can happen, and it can be quite unpredictable. We would never imagine that an African American could win the presidency of the United States. But as things were to fall into place, President Obama won, and he became the first African American to be the president of this country. Too much in my race. No one anticipated that a Vietnamese American and a Republican could represent a congressional seat that has been held by Democrats for over 100 years. But as things begin to fall into place, it happened. But my point here is we have to take the opportunities, we have to look out for